Stay out of trouble.
Stay at home. If you go to the grocery store, with the church on Sunday morning. Coming up here.
Huh?
Coming up here to meet.
You want to wear your green shirt? The regular scheduled meeting of the City of Griffin Board of Commissioners, July 28, 2020. We're going to begin with Mr. David Brock doing the Pledge of Allegiance, followed with Truman Tinsley doing the invocation. If you'll please rise.
Please join me with a pledge, please. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Most gracious Heavenly Father, we're here today to ask your blessings and guidance in the performance of our duties as elected officials. We pray for strength, love, knowledge, and understanding. Help us to recognize and solve the problems that are presented. Make our solutions fair and just for the best interests of everyone. Help us to overcome our shortcomings and keep us united as a team to work for the betterment of the city and its people. We pray in your name. Amen.
Thank you. We have the agenda to approve. We have a motion to approve the agenda as presented. So moved. Mr. Tinsley with the motion. Mrs. Ward with the second. All in favor, please signal by raising your hand. 7-0. First item tonight is citizens' comment. At this time, the mayor opens the floor to comments from the audience. Comments should relate to a specific agenda items not listed on the agenda for public hearing or to a concern within the jurisdiction of the city. Commission meetings serve the purpose of conducting city business and are not a forum for the unlimited expression of opinion. The mayor reserves the right to limit comments to matters germane to city business and may refer speakers to the city manager or other staff for resolution. With that being said, is there anybody on my left side like to come before the board? Anybody on my left? Is there anybody on my right side like to come before the board? Yes, ma'am, please. If you'll please state your name and address the record dispensing.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good.
Can you turn the
My-
mic down?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Oops.
Or you can hold.
All right. My name is Joanne Fennessy, 859 Park Point Drive, Griffin, Georgia, 30224. I have a special request to ask of the city commissioners. As one of those that lived through the peace movement for equal rights and equal justice, I ask that you amend your agenda to include an honorary salute to our political conscience that we have lost. Be it 3 minutes of silence or each commissioner making a statement. I feel that all southern cities should honor those that paved the way for us to be as far as we are today. We are not where we ought to be, but we are surely not where we were when they decided enough is enough. John Robert Lewis and C.T. Vivian are gone now, and it is left up to us to pick up the baton and become this country's conscience and finish making the change that they started. No one is free until everyone is free. Let's be about the business of taking care of business. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Benson. If it's okay with the board, do we do city commissioner comments, allow each, if you'd like to make a statement at that point in time? Is there anybody else on my right? Or, yes, sir, please.
Good evening. My name is Don Driver. I'm a citizen of the city of Griffin. I live at 534 Moore Street, Griffin, Georgia. I'm an active community member within our city, and I come to make a request and ask you guys to look into the possibility of something. During the years of 1970 and 71, there were 2 police officers, William O. Pop Ellis and Mr. Homer Williams, got with the city of Griffin. And more than one person around here, along with some of the people that Ms. Joanne had mentioned, Mr. Gary Reed and all of them, they came and got with the city and got the program called the CEDAR program. That was a cooperative extension training program that put young kids 15 through 18 to work. The school board had some, the city of Griffin had some working for them, the county had some working for them. There was an overstatement of police money at the rally down there. So what I'm asking that if you can find money to put into that, you can try to put some of our kids back to work through this CEDAR program. When I came up as a recipient of this CEDAR program to work and to be able to have my own job, I look at a lot of these kids around here, maybe they don't want to find a job, but if they see our city and our county trying to provide for them those cooperative extension training acts, which there are grants for, you wouldn't have to use none of your money. You can get a grant for it. And the people that we work for, all right, you got community development down here. I know Mr. Daoud, you got Mr. K, economic development. Okay, all of those people can work with us that, well, we can do some things for our city to put our kids to work so that we can bring our kids back up. I am a recipient of that CEDAR program, working at 15 years old in the Griffin Spalding County school system. So I know if they did it back then, you guys can do it now. Because if funds are available somewhere else, why not seek it out for our kids? That side of the fence as well as this side of the fence. We all need to come together to try to find a solution. We're not trying to be browbeat nobody down or nothing like that. We just want to find a really solution to our problems here in the city of Griffin. So we know that there is a problem. We put our kids back together, that's going to teach them self-esteem. Cause they're gonna be on the work program.
That word is cedar, S.
We call it the CETA program. That was
Oh, CETA.
CETA program.
Like CEDER.
Well, see, where some of you, some Mr. Mayor Holbrook, you might remember, Commissioner Ward might remember it too as well back then, but some of them might not. But it put a lot of us to work, right out of high school and college students. So with the city, the county, and the school board, when y'all have y'all joint meeting, these are some of the items that you all need to discuss. How do we bring our citizens up? You see, and one other request, the members over in the east side asked me to ask you, can they have a BLM put in 4th Street and 10th Street? Seeing that they said that one of the local detectives like to set up down there, we would like to have a Black Lives Matter emblem put there, a BLM. If that request
Where
is
is that at?
4th Street and 10th Street, right at our base. Because my citizens down there, they just standing there, they don't have anything to do. The city and the county, that we provide a thing, they provide a thing, recreation and everything, but the city does not run recreation no more, so what do we have to look for? Nothing.
Anything else, Mr. Driver?
I just wish you all would act on it.
We will talk about it.
Thank you, man.
for coming in.
And you
sir.
know my number.
Yes, sir, I've got it. Thank you, Mr. Driver. Is there anybody else on the right or the left? Let's come before the board. Thank you all for being here and bringing your comments. Under public hearings are conducted to allow public comment on specific advertised issues such as rezoning, ordinance, policy development, operating budgets, and other legislative actions to be considered by the City Commission. We have, first item tonight is receive comments regarding a request to amend the Unified Development Code of the City of Griffin, Article 7, Section 704, Table 7.3, permitted uses in the planned commercial district. Director of Planning Development, Chad Jacobs, will address. Good evening, sir. Welcome.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What you have before you is essentially a housekeeping item to allow convenience stores with gasoline or diesel fuel and convenience stores without gasoline or diesel fuel into the PCD, Planned Commercial District. Evidently, this was an oversight in the permitted use table. PCD district is the predominant district that's along 1941, where the vast majority of these gasoline stations are. So we're wanting to get this amended into the code, so that way we don't run into any issues moving forward in the future.
This is a public hearing. Do any commissioners have any questions or comments? Is there anybody in the audience that has a question or comment in regards to this matter? Thank you, Mr. Jacobs. Moving to the consent agenda. Check the minutes, and all 7 of us were present at the last meeting. Pleasure of the board to take items 2 through 8 in one vote. Ms. Murray with a motion to approve the consent agenda, items 2 through 8. Mr. Tinsley with a second. Any discussion? All in favor, signal by raise your hand. In favor? 7-0. Moving into item 9 under the regular agenda. Consider a request to amend the Unified Development Code of the City of Griffin, Article 7, Section 704, Table 7.3, permitted uses in the planned commercial district. We have a motion to approve the recommendation of staff. Ms. Murray?
Second.
Ms. Ward with a second. Any questions or comments? All in favor, signal by raising your hand. 7-0. Item 10 is consider following a portion of Consider allowing a portion of parking area in the right of way at 1028 Drury Avenue for a proposed commercial business.
Yes, so good evening again. So this is a slightly unorthodox request, but we were approached by the owner, Mr. Anthony Dukes, in reference to a potential commercial business that he's looking to do at this location. This is a structure that's been on the property since 1967, so obviously predates some current code. One of the issues that we're dealing with on this is that the building takes up a vast majority of the property, and there's very limited space for parking once we move forward. He will need to apply for rezoning moving forward in the future, and possibly may need some variances. The only request that y'all are hearing this evening tonight is the space that he'll need in order to provide for parking in front of it may extend into the right of way, not into the road. There's ample enough space between edge of pavement of the road of Quilly and the front of the building, but probably parking space would extend into the right of way. So after consultation with the Director of Public Works, Dr. Keller, we just thought it would be a good idea to come before y'all to see if that would be something that y'all would be amenable to.
Is that a 50 feet right away? What is the right of way there?
60-foot right of way? Yes, ma'am.
Are there any other questions?
How often will this parking be utilized?
I'm sorry?
How often will it be utilized?
The nature of the business that he's looking to do would be a creative arts and design studio. My guess is probably, it wouldn't be like your normal retail type establishment. So,
Chad?
Rezoning, you're talking.
so yeah, this would not be, a rezoning would be forthcoming. So we didn't want him to go through a potential rezoning request, and then we had an issue with parking on the heel.
What's the zoning over there now?
The zoning currently is MDR, medium density residential.
Everything over there now is residential?
Yes, ma'am.
With a lot to cross the street, I think.
There, it is in proximity to some PID zoning along Experiment. There's some MBD across the street, and also the future land use map does indicate this as the last commercial planned lot within that area. So, but again, that would be a future request.
I do have a question. I'm looking at the aerial map.
Yes, ma'am.
How wide is the road frontage?
So the right of way again is roughly 60 feet wide.
The lot itself.
Correct. The lot itself. So we didn't measure the width of that. I have to measure the.
By 75.
I'm sorry.
I think it's like 40 by 75 or 90.
It is a very narrow lot.
Okay,
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
what I'm looking at. So even in terms of parking, because there's a structure that's really, really close to it. We're just
Correct.
talking about roughly 40 feet of accessing the right of way.
Well, no. So that would be 40 feet wide.
Right, that's
So
what
if we're
I'm saying.
looking depth at
No,
this
not
stage
yet,
here.
just width across the front of the property.
Correct. So you could get approximately about 4 on a parking stall that's 9 by 18.
Okay,
So we're looking at probably 4 would be a max.
okay. That's the only question I had.
Chad, a right-of-way approach would have to be revocable. If he were to lose this in the future, for some reason the city needed that area, road expansion, whatever, utilities,
Sure.
how bad would that affect his intended business plan?
That's a good question. I mean, here again, this would kind of be along the lines of, some of the spots that you see there, whether that be on West Solomon, things of that nature. I have to check, see kind of where the existing utilities are. But I don't have a good answer for you. I mean, it would definitely be an impact in the future. It would be something that he would have to understand and consider. But, we're trying to dot all the I's and cross all the T's, meeting all of our code as well.
Is this something that you and staff would recommend the
Yes.
variance to consider?
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion to approve the request?
So moved.
Mrs. Flowers with a motion.
Second.
Mr. McCord with a second. Any other discussion? All in
What
yes, ma'am.
district is that? Is that District 1? Is it District 1?
Should be, I think it's your district.
Just still learning the commission districts. I apologize. But I believe so.
Okay, so we have a motion to second. All in favor, please signify by raise your hand. 7-0. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Dukes, good luck. Item 11 is considered ordinance on first reading designating an enterprise zone in the Experiment Street corridor to incentivize new economic development. Economic Development Director Patrick Kay will address. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, commissioners. This is an extension of the opportunity zone that y'all had created a while back. And in order to create an opportunity zone, there either has to be an urban revitalization area or there has to be a enterprise zone first for the opportunity zone to take effect. And so we're coming back before you to put in place an enterprise zone. The enterprise zone is the same exact area in which the opportunity zone, which would be in. The enterprise zone allows for the city of Griffin to be able to waive certain fees of development costs as well as post-assessed taxes on the properties. This is to incentivize the area of Experiment Street and the northwest corner of downtown Griffin to see some additional growth and some additional development. As you'll see on there, there's based on the amount of dollars that they would be investing into the property, how much would be potentially waived on there. Keep in mind that it's post-assessed property taxes, so that if you buy a property for $100,000 and you're paying a certain amount, that you would still be paying that. It's if you put in an additional $200,000 or an additional $50,000, that was the taxes on that would be waived. It would be only waived on the city.
Any questions? We discussed this morning. We have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Brock with a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Mr. Tinsley with a second. All in favor, signal by raising your hand. 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Kay. Item 12 is consider bid for the design engineering project for the East Solomon Street and Cersei Avenue intersection project to the best responsive proposal submitted by Heath and Lineback Engineers, Inc. in the amount of $254,163 for the Public Works Department. Dr. Keller is available to address if needed. Ms. Ward with a motion. Ms. Murray with a second. All in favor, please signal by raising your hand. 7-0. Item 13, consider on first reading an ordinance amending the city code of Griffin, Georgia, at chapter 14 animals by deleting it in its entirety and enacting a new chapter 14. Deputy City Manager Jessica O'Connor will address. Ms. Ward with a motion. Second. Mr. McCord with a second. Are there any questions or comments? And this will implement the spay and neuter program as we've discussed over the past couple of years.
Yes, sir. And just for those that weren't present this morning, we are as staff recommending a $25 permit fee for the unaltered permit. We think that this needs to be sort of a more reactive approach and a punishment if you let your dog roam, not necessarily want to charge you up front for allowing your dog to remain intact. So the $25 would just cover our administrative costs as well as the tag that we'll provide. The fine is just the general fine, which is contained in the charter and in chapter 2 of our administration in the code, which is up to $1,000 and set by the judge. He can always increase that if there are additional issues that may arise with a particular person or a particular pet. So that's what we are suggesting, and I can bring that resolution if everybody is in consensus on the second reading.
We have a motion second. All in favor, please signal by raising your hand. 7-0. Thank you, Mr. O'Connor. City Manager's report.
That's all I'd like to draw your attention to the corner of the room and introduce Mrs. Felicia Camp. Felicia on Monday joined the city manager's office. She will be taking Susan Bartholomew's position when Susan Bartholomew transitions to Ms. Watson's position. As you know, Ms. Watson will be retiring on the 14th, and I believe you have invitations there for her retirement reception. So that will be her last day, and Ms. Bartholomew will switch offices, and we're excited to have Ms. Camp joining our team. So she will be available to assist you in all things through my office. And that's all I have tonight.
Mr. Whalen.
I have that.
Mr. McCord.
Thank you so much. I got quite a few things tonight. First of all, I want to, of course, thank everyone for coming out, and I want to thank the board members that were able to attend our, what do we call it? Workshop? A workshop that we held at Athens, and I thought it was very informative. Thought we did a good job to tackle some tough issues. And I want to make sure that I got some of these that needs to go into the minutes, and I sent an email to the city manager. We went over some of it. We tackled a whole bunch of issues that range from job requirements, specifics, what the role of the commissioners and the mayor is, not to create a hostile work environment for our employees, our staff, and management here at the city. And we went over all of that. So, and also I got some things to say about Representative Lewis and also Mr. C.T. Vivian. But I want to start, I got 11 points here, and some we covered. We just didn't get a chance to extensively get into them. And got to receive some phone calls from some people before we got over there to talk about some of the issues in our city. And we were talking about Citizen Review Board from UOA to speak with the chief, and they are in talks with the chief about that. But it's just some things that I want to introduce to the board. Number one, we should, some things that came about, introduce a mandatory diversity training program for all supervisory employees. And from what we talked in our meeting, in our workshop, was not for just supervisory, but for all employees. Everyone should take advantage of diversity training. Create a new diversity and inclusion specialist position for the city. And that's something that I would like this board to seriously consider. The city manager has a copy of what I'm reading to you right now. Ensure more recruitment of underrepresented candidates for job openings and contract opportunities. Review and update personnel resolutions to ensure that city procedures for recruitment, hiring, and promotions, as well as creation of new positions, incorporate best human resources and equal employment opportunity practices. Create a leadership training program for all employees seeking education or experience necessary for advancement within the city departments. Number 4, develop strategies to encourage more minority and women business enterprises to be able to be competitive in winning bids and contract opportunities and doing business with the city. There may also need to be a position created at the city for this purpose. Make the board and committee appointments that consist of qualified individuals that reflect the makeup demographics of the city. Create a citizens advisory board that can expand community participation and engagement by discussing complex social issues and coming up with solutions, promote respect, caring, and collaboration between all citizens, and encourage them to learn about their neighbor's culture. Prioritize racially just community policing. These are all of these, again, these are some of the things that we talked about. 8, ensuring the availability of diverse and affordable housing options. Create ordinances that hold slumlords liable for their actions or lack thereof in regards to neglect of their properties and treatment of tenants. We also talked about that, and we talked about making sure that the elected officials understand that it is not their place to go into the Office of Code Enforcement and to encourage or discourage them from enacting the codes when it comes to landlords. So we went over that extensively. We spent a lot of time talking about that, and I think it's very important that we all understand that. And I think now we have a real good understanding that the city manager of the city of Griffin runs the day-to-day operations of the city. So whatever happened in the past, we're gonna let the past be the past. Whether it was as early as last Monday, we're gonna let all of that be in the past, and we're going to, from going forward, there will be no elected officials meddling in the day-to-day operations of what goes on with the city staff, meaning the city manager. Anybody has a concern, they need something, need the commissioners to take care of something, the only thing we can do is direct our employee, which the city commission hires 4 people: the city manager, the city attorney, the city court judge, and the city solicitor. The city manager runs the day-to-day operations of the city. I can't sign anything. If somebody comes to me, calls me and say, hey, can you get this trash picked up? I cannot call a department head as a directive and say, hey, go pick up this trash. I have a community director less than a mile from my house, Carrington Place. and they're having a real bad problem with trash, with garbage. And if I could, I would love to be able to just call up the sanitation department code and say, hey, y'all go out here. I want this cleaned up today, right now, but that is not my job. That is not the form of government that we have in our city. So that is directed to the city manager and his staff. We are, all of us, all 6 of us that were there, and now everybody else is crystal clear, like what, Cora? Amico Ultimate. We are crystal clear that that is how it works. Where was that? I wrote this by myself. You'll show me somewhere in
Number 8.
Number 8. Number 9, cultivate a welcoming and inclusive retail environment. Encourage all businesses, houses of worship, civic groups, and nonprofit organizations to maintain a safe and welcoming environment for all employees, customers, visitors, and vendors. I don't know if many of you had a chance to see our 2020 documentary. And it, once again, it did not put our city in the best of lights. I get calls from, got calls from all over the country talking about the town that I am so proud of, the city that I choose to raise my family in. By the way, Saturday I'll be 50. So for 50 years, this has been my home, my community that I love. And when I hear people around the country calling me and talking about the city in which I live, I don't like to feel as if I'm ashamed of my town. I'm probably, in my word, the proudest resident of Griffin. Everything I do is Griffin. I'm Griffin High. I'm the voice of Griffin. All of that. And I want to be proud of my town. And in order for me to be proud of my town, in order for me to not be ashamed, we have to, these things that I'm talking about tonight is going to have to become part of our shaping our image, not only to the world, but to ourselves, that we, the residents of our community, feel that we are a welcoming community, that we are not what was portrayed on TV. Even though we have some of that, and when we see that kind of stuff, we have got to become vigilant amongst ourselves to say to our brothers and our sisters, Black, white, Jew, Gentile, Protestant, or Catholic, that this is Griffin and we expect more and we're going to do better. So that was, what number was that?
9.
That was 9, because I wrote this by myself this time. I don't want you taking any credit for this. Number 10, maximize the use of public spaces to be more inclusive of the citizen population. And I think Mr. Driver just talked about that. And that's the kind of thing that we must look into if we expect to change from within, so that when people see us, so when they come back, 2020 is ever back in our community again, they can say, look at the changes, what has happened, the attitudes of the people, and we are not non-racist, we are anti, meaning that we don't want this in our community. And number 11, create or promote and initiate programs for teens that provide them with mentorship, job readiness, career training, financial literacy, education, and some employment opportunities with the city or private organizations within the city. And I think, again, as Mr. Driver and Yoshanda, Dr. Jones, submitted many of these. And I think, as you can tell, we got people thinking a lot alike. So I normally don't take up this much of our time, but I think it's just so vitally important that we know that the world is watching. The world is, when they think of Griffin, Georgia now, they're gonna think of what happened with Timothy Coggins. They're gonna think about our meeting that happened in 2018. Me, for one, I don't want that to be the image of our beloved city. I think we are much better than that. Mr. C.T. Vivian, I met once or twice, and he was a very quiet, just a quiet, soft-spoken man, just a very, always had a smile. And I think I heard the gentleman said, you didn't leave there just with a smile, because if you left with a laugh. And he would always, even in this fight for civil rights, that he could find something to smile about. In this time that we're going through in our community and in the world, I hope that we can smile and have something that we can smile about, that we can see some changes taking place in our community. John Lewis, Representative John Lewis, I had a chance to meet him when I was in college at Morehouse, the Foundation for Dumb Blacks Teachers in the Nation, and he came into the classroom, and there were some guys in there that weren't from Georgia and didn't really know much about them. Students from New York and from California, and he was not a silver-tongued speaker. He was not somebody that just spoke so eloquently. And the professor, as he was leaving the room, she was telling us that this man had a plate in his head from where he had been beaten during a march. Even after being beaten during that march, this man still was a person who showed love, even to those who proclaimed to be his enemies. And once they changed their hearts, he would accept them. They would come to him and apologize, and he would accept their apology and keep it moving. This was a man who had no fear to go after, and his phrase is good trouble. And a lot of times we end up in these meetings and settings like this, and we talk about things that are very uncomfortable. When you start talking about race, and it makes a lot of people uncomfortable. But when you watch a giant in the movement, this guy was a young fellow. When he went to march alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he was known as the boy from Troy. That's what they called him. He was a young fellow. And a few of us up here got involved in this stuff at a very young age. And it has matured us. I see it in myself. I see it in Commissioner Flowers, who started, I want to say she was 18. But it will take more than Ms. Flowers, myself, Mayor Holberg, the 7 members of this board, Ms. Fennessy, Mr. Dukes, all of the people that I see out here today to fill the shoes of a giant like John Lewis, a person who was willing to not violently, but to use his words, to use his influence, to try to make the world a better place, to fight for the rights of people that didn't look like him, that didn't think like him. And he fought for those civil rights. When you think about his impact in the Congress, Alabama, and the 5th District of Atlanta, it was just, it's impossible not to see this man as some type of celebrity. But if you ever had the chance to meet him, and I did, I had a chance to meet him, and he was, when someone says a humble servant, this was a humble servant. He never, either he didn't know, or he just never acted as if he was doing something so grand. He was just a very simple person, just a person very accessible. If you look on social media today, you can find hundreds and thousands of people with pictures with John Lewis. And this was a man who walked shoulder to shoulder with Dr. King. Here's a man who went over on Bloody Sunday over that Edmund Pettus Bridge and had his head cracked open. And he is known throughout the world. But if you met him, if you ever had the chance to meet him, he was the most humble person. So I honor the legacy of John Lewis. And if I could just be 1/100th of a million, whatever, the smallest of what he was, hopefully a little bit of him rubbed off on all of us, that we may live in a better world. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Ms. Murray.
Gosh, Rodney, thank you. I don't even know I concur. I want to continue to honor those leaders. I'm committed to working with this board and continue to unify and grow from all the conversations and everything that we work for and continue to work for. And thank you again for coming. Again, it's so good to see 2 or 3 meetings in a row where we have a pretty filled room in spite of everything, in spite of those who feel like they have to stay home still for reasons of health. So thanks for being committed and coming out. Good to see you. Thanks.
Commissioner Flowers.
Briefly, I'll just say, I appreciate everyone's participation at the workshop that we had this week. It is not easy to sit through conversations that differ from the perspective that you have. And so I think what I took from it that was most awesome is I did feel like we listened to each other. And as I have said many, many times before, listening is key. Understanding changes perspectives on everything. So I do want to say thank you to all of you for listening and adding your opinion and perspective. I think we will work better together as a team when we can understand where each of us comes from. And not to piggyback off what Rodney said, but Rodney talked for a very long time and covered a lot of bases. I think sometimes we forget that public service is not fun. It's easy to kind of glamorize it from the outside and think like, oh, they're there and they're in those positions. It's not an easy position to be in. And I think in those moments you have to remind yourself why you do it, and look at the examples that have come before you, even when you feel defeated and don't really think that there's any possibility for change. You can look to those people who have been leaders for so long and reinvigorate yourself and remember that if you will stay in the fight, there is the chance that you can change something.
Mr. Brock.
Well said, Rodney. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Tinsel.
Nothing to add. Ms. Ward.
As Cora said, Rodney pretty much covered all of the bases. And I think he pretty much took the time that Ms. Fennessy talked about us acknowledging Dr. Vivian and Mr. Lewis. My last live memory of Mr. John Lewis was when during the Black Lives Matters, basically on his deathbed, when he rolled out in a wheelchair amongst the protesters. And that's truly an activist or someone that fought the battle all the way to his death. He was an humble servant and he was committed and he lived his life for the purpose. And basically, I saw yesterday how he was honored in DC. And it brought me to tears. It really brought me to tears. I was proud of how he was honored. And I was actually proud of all of the political figures from Georgia. I was really, really, really from both parties about how they supported and spoke of him. So, and that's something I don't say often, but I was really touched by all of them from both parties, how they came together and showed support for our state brother. The other thing was we did have what I thought was an invigorating workshop. One of the questions that was asked, and I really didn't think about it after I left, was if we found out something about each other that we really didn't know. And I did. I think I got an insight into just sitting up here. A lot of times we form opinions about each other, but I got a chance to really actually see into the more in depth to the people that I work with. I think everything was really, I'm not gonna say a success, but I think we covered some stuff that we don't really have a time to really delve into when we're here. We should have got some clear understandings, and I hope we did, but we'll see. I made a statement a few weeks ago back about for myself. In the past, sometimes I put myself in a position where I was a team player, which meant that I had to just kind of brush over some of the things that I really was passionate about. And I made a statement that it was not going to be business as usual for myself, and it's really not. So basically what we have to do as the board of commissioners is to hold each other accountable when we know that we're not doing what it is that we need to be doing. One of the main things is staying in our lane, knowing what our role is and sticking to that role and not interfering with the day-to-day operation of the staff and the employees. And committing ourselves to be servants to the people that hire us. So with all that being said, I guess I'm done.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. So first what I do is I want to thank staff for the presentations and your prepare work that you've done. You always are excellent. And we thank you for your hard work and commitment to the citizens of Griffin. The frustrating part about government and me being who I am and who a lot of these folks are is that we all love Griffin, Georgia. We all have a vision, a dream of how to have a better Griffin for all the citizens. And the economic challenges that we face, the demographic challenges, are all issues that are intertwined together, and trying to make Griffin a better place for all isn't as simple as a lot of people think. It's waving a magic wand. So our board, in my 16 and a half years, Ms. Ward, Ms. Flowers, Mr. McCord, and now what I call our newbies, you got folks that have been here a little over 4 years or so. Governing is difficult because it requires so many things to happen for the greater good of everybody. And what I can reassure you is that my passion for Griffin, for making it the best place it can be, will always be there. I continue to have an open door policy and work for all the citizens of Griffin. Each commissioner represents basically 4,000 citizens in Griffin, and unfortunately I get to represent almost all 24,000. So I can take every action, every vote, how it affects every citizen in Griffin, and for the greater good of all. In regards to Mr. Driver, thank you for your continued coming here, bringing things, and as I continue to listen and learn and to try to understand better, we can work together. Government can't solve all the problems. It's going to require a community to take ownership of those problems and working together. And so ideas like Mr. Driver brings, Dr. Jones brings, Ms. Fennessy brings, we can work together for the greater good and look forward to this open dialogue. In regards to Congressman John Lewis, I didn't always agree with him in regards to our political affiliation, but this weekend and times past, when we reflect on I was born in '68, so basically the civil rights movement was at the high point and had no personal didn't really understand at that age, being a baby, but the courage that those individuals to step forward and to take on those challenges and to change society for the greater good of all mankind. It's it's exciting to see that type of heart and soul and love and the forgiveness. I saw a story of a gentleman that was in the Klan that was there against Congressman Lewis back in the 60s, and in his writing mentioned he accepted forgiveness of this man for, his whole attitude changed in terms of his perception and reality, and Congressman Lewis was willing to forgive. And if we each can forgive each other for transgressions against each other, there's hope for all of us. So I'm going to leave you with one scripture verse, 2 Thessalonians 3:1-3. Brothers and sisters, never tire of doing what is good. So keep doing good. And with that being said, we have a motion to adjourn. Mr. Tinsley with a motion to adjourn. Ms. Ward with a second. All in favor, aye.
I did all that by myself.